Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder. Today we're diving into Bitmine Immersion Technology's annual report. And let's just say their numbers are as wild and volatile as the crypto market itself. So buckle up before we jump into the nitty gritty. If you love getting these insider looks at companies without the Wall Street jargon, smash that subscribe button. And hey, we've got a growing community over on our Discord, linked in the description below, where you can chat about these reports and more. Alright, so this is Bitmine's big annual report covering their fiscal year up to the 31st of August 2025. The company has been on a bit of a journey shifting from mining equipment and self-mining to a heavy focus on Ethereum, or ETH as they call it, and managing it as their main treasure. It is like they decided to put all their eggs, or rather all their digital coins, into one really big basket. Let's peek at their revenue for the fiscal year ending the 31st of August 2025. Total revenue was $6,095,000. That is up a massive 84% from the $3,310,000 in 2024. This jump is due to a few things. They saw more revenue from selling mining equipment, bringing in $846,000 compared to just $231,000 the year before. They also had income from leasing equipment, which brought in $1,881,000, something they did not do the previous year. Self-mining revenue was $3,133,000, a slight bump from $3,031,000. They got more miners in late 2024, which helped, but some issues like maintenance and ending a hosting agreement in early 2025 slowed things down a bit. Plus, they shifted some of that mining revenue into leasing, which is a pretty big change in how they make money. And then there is consulting revenue, which they didn't have at all in 2024, but brought in $235,000 in 2025. This is from a single agreement to provide services for a year, netting them half of the total $800,000 deal up front. This shows their strategy is really changing, moving into consulting on top of their digital asset holdings. Looking at the cost, total cost of sales jumped 67% to $5,785,000 from $3,473,000. A big chunk of this is the cost of leasing, which was $1,749,000 in 2025, compared to zero the year before. Now, operating expenses are where things get really interesting, and frankly, a bit scary for investors. General and administrative expenses shot up from $2,279,000 in 2024 to a whopping $13,984,000 in 2025. That is a huge jump driven by new banking and custody fees, more spending on professional services, and higher executive compensation. Employee shareholder compensation also went up a lot, likely from stock awards. And then there is warrant expense. In 2025, it hit $348,959,000, a massive increase from zero in 2024. This relates to those strategic advisor warrants they handed out, which can really dilute the value for existing shareholders. But here is the part that makes this report really unique. They had an unrealized gain from digital asset holdings of $805,008 in 2025. This massive gain comes from their ETH or Ethereum holdings. They account for digital assets at fair value, meaning any rise or fall in the price of ETH directly impacts their reported profit. This is a double-edged sword. When ETH goes up, they look like geniuses. But if it drops, their profits could vanish overnight. Because of that huge unrealized gain, income from operations went from a loss of $2,448,000 in 2024 to a massive profit of $444,211,000 in 2025. And after all the other expenses and taxes, their net income for 2025 was $348,577,000. A stark contrast to a loss of $3,293,000 in 2024. This swing is almost entirely driven by the value of their ETH holdings. Let's dig into these digital assets as of the 31st of August 2025. They held ETH valued at $8,260,607,000 and BTC valued at $20,923,000. That is a total of over $8.28 billion in digital assets. They clearly see ETH as their main vehicle for growth and are aiming to eventually hold 5% of the total ETH supply. That is a bold and incredibly risky strategy. Now, when we talk about market risk, their biggest worry is the price of ETH and BTC. They admit they don't use fancy hedging strategies, so any drop in ETH's price directly hits their bottom line. And given how volatile crypto can be, this is a huge risk. They are essentially betting the farm on ETH continuing to rise in value. Imagine if you put all your savings into one stock, and that stock was as volatile as Bitcoin. That is what Bitmine has done with their treasury. In their management's discussion, they're straightforward. They acknowledge their results are driven by ETH market conditions. They're shifting to a capital light model. What does that mean? It means less spending on building mining sites and more focus on services like consulting and advisory, and of course, managing their ETH treasure. They also mentioned strengthening liquidity through stock offerings, which means more shares potentially diluting current shareholders. Looking at cash flows, operating activities used $4,149,000 in 2025, up from $30,000 in 2024. This increase is mostly from those higher general and administrative expenses we saw. Investing activities shows a massive outflow of $7,432,009 in 2025, very different from the $67,000 in 2024. This is almost entirely due to buying ETH. They spent billions on ETH, which is the big play driving their entire financial picture. Financing activities provided $7,947,659,000 in 2025, a huge leap from just $325,000 in 2024. This is from their stock offerings and ATM program, essentially raising a lot of cash by selling more shares. Now, for something that might make you pause, in the controls and procedures section, they admit to material weaknesses in their internal financial reporting. Basically, they say they don't have enough qualified accounting staff, no formal risk assessment process, and no clear documented procedures. This is a big red flag. It means their financial statements might not be as reliable as they should be. They're working on fixing it, but it shows a lack of financial discipline that is concerning, especially for a company holding billions in volatile assets. The auditors, Bush and Associates CPA LLC, highlighted the valuation of digital assets as a critical audit matter. And honestly, it is no surprise valuing ETH and BTC, which are their main assets, is complex. They had to dig deep to verify ownership and compare their valuations to market data. This is where the real risk lies because their reported profits are so dependent on these volatile valuations. So, what is my take on Bitmine Immersion Technologies? From a pure numbers perspective, their strategy is incredibly high risk, high reward. They're betting heavily on ETH and haven't hedged that risk. The massive gain in 2025 is impressive on paper, but it is entirely tied to ETH's price. The fact that they're admitting to major weaknesses in their internal financial controls is a serious concern. It suggests a lack of operational rigor that, combined with their digital asset strategy, could lead to significant problems. Their strength lies in their access to capital from recent offerings, which allowed them to acquire such a large ETH treasury. They've also managed to expand into advisory and leasing services. But the weakness is profound, their over-reliance on ETH's price performance and their internal control issues. The opportunity is clear if ETH continues to soar, but the risks of a dramatic ETH price correction combined with their accounting and control problems are equally significant. My conclusion is that Bitmine Immersion Technologies is a highly speculative investment. They are more of a digital asset holding company than an operating company at this point, and their future success is almost entirely dependent on the performance of ETH and their ability to fix their internal financial reporting issues. Alright, that is our deep dive into Bitmine Immersion Technologies' latest report. What do you think about their ETH-centric strategy and those internal control weaknesses? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give it a like and subscribe for more corporate insights delivered in plain English. And don't forget to join our Discord community linked in the description. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.